Hello everyone, peace be upon you. Before we begin, don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe, and stay with me until the end of the story. Also, leave a comment telling me which city and country you're watching from. I'd love to see how far my story has reached. For those of you who have already subscribed, I sincerely wish you good health, ease in all your affairs, abundant blessings, and may all your hopes and dreams come true. Amen. Now, let's begin the story. The sun came up clean over Coronado, turning the water into a hard sheet of light and pushing the cool air off the sand. Silver Range Training Field looked empty from a distance, just flat earth and steel plates standing in a row like quiet sentries. Up close, the place was awake, boots on gravel, range flags snapping, instructors checking clipboards, the low clatter of gear. Admiral Rick Calloway stood at the edge of the observation line, hands behind his back, eyes steady. Commander Joel Barrett kept half a step off his shoulder, listening without speaking. They were waiting to see who would settle and who would flinch when the noise started. Harper Lane moved with no rush. She didn't try to fill the air with jokes or chatter like some of the others. She carried the weight of the day the way she carried her ruck, centered, balanced, under control. Petty Officer Mia Cortez had laid out the big rifle on its rest, the .50 that always looked more like a piece of equipment than a weapon. Mia's checks were quick, practiced. Harper watched her hands, read the small nod that meant everything was exactly as it should be. Ensign Tyler Briggs hovered 2 spots down the line, pretending not to watch, but his eyes kept drifting toward Harper like a compass needle. The range officer called the brief. Targets at staggered distances, wind mild from the west, mirage already starting to shimmer. The plan was simple on paper, confirm 0, then 6 steel, near to far. Clean hits only. No theatrics. No second chances. The kind of drill that exposes nerves for what they are. Harper dropped to prone, elbows set, shoulder pocketed, cheek to stock. The world narrowed, not to a tunnel, but to a clean frame. She let her breathing slide from shallow to measured. In through the nose, hold, out slow, settle. She felt the rifle's mass through bone and muscle, not fighting it, aligning to it. Fingers loose until they needed not to be. Her eyes tracked the first plate in the glass, a square of light and shadow that didn't care about rank or reputation. Behind her, voices dropped. Calloway didn't speak, didn't shift. He had seen enough shooters to know the tells, the fast blink, the jaw clench, the wasted micro-movements that gave away doubt. Harper offered none. The wind tickled the flag, a small angle, nothing dramatic. She read it, made a quiet correction, let the crosshair sit. The first shot broke. The .50 didn't just crack, it punched the air and pushed dust into a brief halo. Recoil came back like a tide and rolled off the line of her body. The plate hesitated, then folded. No celebration. No comment. She worked the bolt, felt the empty casing skip off the gravel, found the second plate already waiting in the glass. For Tyler, time sped up, for Harper, it slowed. She built the same sequence again, breath, settle, pressure, no drag, no jab. Second shot went and the steel dropped as if it had been held up by a string cut at the knot. In Barrett's mind, a tally clicked over, but his face stayed flat. Calloway's eyes thinned by a fraction. That was all. Heat started to rise off the ground. Mirage tugged at edges, made targets dance a little if you stared wrong. Harper didn't stare, she measured and moved. She slid one elbow to re-anchor, rolled a quiet degree to account for angle. Third plate was half in glare. It didn't matter. The trigger broke, the blast carried, the steel gave up its place and hit dirt. A few recruits forgot to pretend they weren't impressed. Mia kept her gaze on the rifle and the rhythm of Harper's hands, checking for any jitter that would show fatigue. She saw none. People talk about strength with the .50, like it's a contest of force. Harper knew better. It was pacing, geometry, patience. Let the rifle be heavy, let the recoil be real, but make each part work for you. She didn't bully the shot, she built it. Shot 4 confirmed it. Dust lifted, plate fell, silence pressed back in. By then, the range had shifted. Doubt drains sound. Respect drains motion. Recruits who had smirked were standing square, eyes forward, waiting to see if the pattern held or cracked. The wind leaned a hair harder. Harper accepted it. She adjusted with a small turn, stacked her breathing, and met the 5th target like it was a task, not a test. Trigger, break, impact. The plate didn't wobble, it surrendered. Calloway didn't move, but something old and familiar tightened in his chest. It wasn't surprise. It was recognition, the clean line between training and discipline, between being good once and being good whenever it counts. He had spent years looking for it and could tell when it was in front of him. Barrett let a slow exhale out his nose and said nothing. The 6th plate waited far and angled, set to punish a lazy read. Harper reset everything like it was the first shot of the day. She let the noise of the previous hits fall away. No momentum, no streak, just a single requirement, do this one right. She tracked the shimmer, clocked the push of air, found the center not as a point but as a window. Pressure came on straight, even. The rifle answered with the same hard report. Out on the far line, the plate shivered, then dropped clean. The range didn't cheer. It breathed. Then the talking started again, lower, different. Gear clicked. Boots shifted. The instructor marked the card. Harper eased the rifle safe, lifted her head, and let the wider world back in. She didn't look around for faces, didn't search for approval. She cleared the chamber and set the weapon down like you set down a tool you respect. Calloway broke his stance and walked the gravel slow, Barrett half a pace behind. He stopped short of the line and took in the fallen steel, 6 marks in the dirt that didn't lie. He didn't hand out praise in public, he didn't need to. Harper didn't ask for it. Mia gave Harper a small nod that said everything in 2 beats, solid work, no waste. Tyler stared like he was recalibrating what a person could do. By late morning the heat was a weight. The targets were reset for the next group, the story already moving down the benches. Harper stood, rolled one shoulder to keep blood moving, and listened to the range officer's next instructions without letting them crowd her head. For her, the work wasn't finished because plates were down. The day was still in motion. Calloway turned away last. Coronado lay out beyond the berm, blue water and hard light, ships sitting like dark shapes on a bright field. He had come for a qualification. He had found a standard. And as the line prepped for the next evolution, the Admiral was already thinking past the range, past the neat order of steel and dirt, to rooms with screens and maps where pressure sounded different but broke the same kind of people. Harper didn't know that yet. She only knew the rifle had done what it was supposed to do, because she had done what she was supposed to do. That was enough, for the morning. It wasn't enough for Calloway. By the time the targets were reset and the next line was stepping up, he'd already sent a short message down the chain. When Harper cleared the rifle and signed the range card, Mia gave her a quiet thumbs up. Tyler said nothing, just tracked her like he was still trying to solve for X. Barrett pointed with 2 fingers toward the road. Command wants you, he said, calm as ever. No ceremony. The Pacific Command Simulation Center ran cool and dim, wall-to-wall screens drawing maps out of blue light. Operators moved like they were part of the furniture, headsets, clipped conversations, no wasted movement. Harper followed Barrett into the central bay, where a ring of consoles faced a main display. Calloway was already there, arms folded, eyes on a scenario map of coastal lanes stacked with icons. He didn't look at her right away. Lane, he said, still watching the board. Range work is clean. Now let's see what happens when the variables talk back. She took the center console. The brief came fast. A convoy under limited escort running south along the coast. Unknown fast movers probing at standoff, changing speed irregularly, comms intermittent, weather trending worse. The sim was built to eat hesitation. If you were slow, you bled. If you were rash, you broke your screen and left a hole. Conditions locked, an operator said. Clock starts on your command. Harper steadied her breathing the same way she did on the line. Different tools, same process. Start it, she said. Everything moved at once. Contacts bloomed at the edge of radar. The convoy's tight lane shifted with a tug in the current. A calm fragment cut through, then died. Harper resisted the urge to chase. She set priorities, tightened the escort geometry, and pushed a drone feed into the gap the radar couldn't fill. She didn't narrate her thoughts. She issued short orders: Escort 2, widen 5 degrees. Keep station on the Merchant with the shallow draft. Drone 1, climb and offset 3 miles east. Barrett watched her hands, not her face. Calloway watched her face, not her hands. The first probe came fast. 2 fast movers split and tested opposite sides of the screen. A lot of officers chased both and lost the middle. Harper didn't bite. She massed attention where the real risk was, covered the softest ship, and let the less dangerous contact run as long as it meant keeping her structure. When it tried to fold back in, her screen was already in place. Warning broadcast, she said. No fire. A minute stretched. The room felt even colder. The fast mover on the strong side slowed. The other maintained speed but angled wide. Classic split. They want the escort to peel off, Barrett murmured. Harper ignored the noise. She slid a decoy in the lane the wide contact wanted and bought herself time. Then the weather layer rolled into the feed, rain cells chewing at the edges of visibility. The sim's clock pushed harder. Lane, Calloway said, voice flat, just enough to ask, are you going to blink? She didn't. Hold your lanes, she told the virtual crews. We're not outrunning the rain, we're shaping it. She used the cell like a curtain and shifted assets behind it, masking the Merchant that would be easiest to trap. The wide contact lost the picture for a beat. When it came back, her screen had shifted again, tighter, cleaner. The probing boat tried a late dart. She tagged it with a tracked warning burst in the sim, water impact only. It flinched and turned off. The other one found no seam and drifted. Then the sim escalated the way sims do, comms went sketchier, a Merchant reported engine trouble, and the fast movers regrouped on the edge of the weather. This was where officers overcorrected, where they chased the loudest problem and opened space for the quiet one. Harper kept her triangle solid, reassigned escort weight to cover the slow Merchant without stripping the flank, and bled the probe's angles with small moves that didn't advertise panic. Broadcast again, she said. Restricted waters. Identify or retreat. The board steadied. Losses popped up in the margin, minimal. Threat, unresolved, reduced. The clock ran down. Scenario complete, the operator called. Mission success. Nobody clapped. That wasn't how this room worked. Barrett finally let out a breath. Clean, he said, almost to himself. Calloway didn't speak for a long second. Then he nodded once, like acknowledging a fact he'd already known. You didn't chase ghosts, he said to Harper. You didn't confuse noise for threat. Harper kept her tone level. The pattern wasn't offensive. It was probing. If we spiked the throttle, we would have given them seams. Plenty of people would have taken the bait, Barrett said. He wasn't wrong. A few operators nearby, the ones who'd run this sim for half the coast, exchanged quick looks. Word moves fast on a base, reputation moves faster. Tyler, who had come in late and hung near the back, looked at the board like it had betrayed him. He'd been sure the range was a trick, a one-off. This wasn't a trick. Outside, afternoon sun bounced off the bay, hard and white. When Harper stepped out of the dark room, the warmth landed on her shoulders. She didn't feel taller or smaller. Just steady. Barrett caught up to her on the walkway. "You'll want water," he said, handing her a bottle not as a favor, but as part of the routine. "Calloway's not done." He wasn't. The Admiral's office looked out over the channel, blinds half closed against the glare. He stood by the window, not sitting, posture still in uniform even in a quiet room. "Good on the range," he said without lead-in. "Good in there. Don't mistake this for praise. It's an evaluation." "Yes, sir." He took his time. "You didn't rush. You didn't hide. You didn't need to be right quickly, you needed to be right." He turned from the window. "That's harder to teach than trigger squeeze." For a moment, the office was just the hum of air and the distant thump of rotors somewhere over the water. "We're going to find out if your control holds when the variables aren't scripted." Harper didn't ask for the when. She knew better. He would tell her when it mattered. She left the office with the same flat stride she'd walked in with. Down on the pier, a patrol boat's crew was doing pre-underway checks. Lines coiled. Radios chattered. The kind of sound that feels like a clock starting. Mia caught her near the armory door. "Heard you lit up the board," she said, low. "Range chatter says you made it look easy." "It wasn't," Harper said. "It just wasn't messy." Tyler passed with two other ensigns, conversation too loud, the kind of volume that pretends not to be aimed at anyone. "Sims are just screens," he said. "Ocean's different." He didn't look at her. He didn't have to. Mia raised an eyebrow like she was asking whether it was worth burning energy on opinions that hadn't seen enough nights yet. Harper let it go. The ocean would have its say sooner or later. By evening, clouds were moving in off the water. Calloway signed a set of orders with a pen that looked older than most of the junior officers on base. He didn't call a meeting. He sent a message, short and direct. The words landed in Harper's inbox at 0440 the next morning, before the horizon had a line of light under it, before the pier was loud. "Report to Hangar 3. Patrol package brief. Real world, not simulated." The words were still in Harper's head when the hangar door rolled up and spilled pale light on metal. The briefing table was small, the printouts clean, the talk short. 3 unknown fast boats had been showing up off San Clemente, moving at odd hours, weaving near the line like they were measuring response time. No flags. No IDs. No hail. "Minimal force," Calloway said. "Maximum control. Do not escalate without cause." Barrett handled the details, route, comms, weather window. Mia checked the deck gun's control panel and gave Harper a nod that said the hardware would do what it was asked. They stepped onto the pier while it was still gray. The patrol boat took the water like it had been waiting. Lines came off. Engines rumbled into a steady hum. Harper took the bow on the way out, not for drama, just to read the wind and the sea before the chatter ramped up. Tyler was on board as part of the line crew, eyes a little wide, trying not to show it. He avoided looking at her for the first 10 minutes, then failed and looked anyway. She didn't say anything. The ocean doesn't care about feelings. Out past the channel markers, the water opened. The radio kept a low murmur of base traffic in one ear. The other ear was all engine and hull. The radar showed open air first, then a smear, then 3 small returns drifting in and out at the edge like gnats. "I see them," the coxswain said. "Range growing, bearing steady." Harper took the binoculars and found wakes before she found hulls. The boats were low and fast, hull paint dark enough to blend. Not fishing. Not tourists. Their pattern wasn't casual. It was a test. "Hold course," Harper said. No siren. Broadcast on 16, restricted waters. Identify or depart. The watchstander repeated the call, voice flat and clear. No answer. The boats didn't tighten in, they paced, like they were waiting for the patrol to lunge. Harper didn't lunge. Gunners, track only. Weapons cold. Helm, keep us just inside the line, no further. The wind shifted a touch from the southwest. It brought a fine chop that set the bow into a light rise and fall. The fast boats adjusted without hurry, maintaining a lazy triangle. Tyler hovered at the rail, hands busy on a coil that didn't need that much attention. He was working off nerves. Harper let him. One of the fast boats finally broke pattern and came in hot, wake fizzing off its stern. That's where things usually went sideways. People read speed as threat and skipped straight to force. Harper locked on the behavior, not the noise. Track the lead only, she told the gunner. No fire. At 200 yards it cut across the bow, then drifted parallel, daring the crew to twitch. Another came up on the starboard quarter, not close, but close enough to make everyone think about angles. Broadcast again, Harper said. Same message. She kept her voice even, volume just loud enough to carry. She shifted her stance and watched the way the helmsman's hands worked the wheel, steady, small inputs, no panic. Good. The lead boat slid a hair closer, the kind of nudge that turns discipline into an argument inside your own head. Mia's hand floated near the deck gun's safe switch, not touching it. On you, Mia said, low. Harper didn't let the fast boat dictate the tempo. She read the wake, the bow angle, the lack of visible weapons. Showy, not suicidal. Warning shot, waterline, starboard side, off the bow of the closest contact. 1 round only. On my mark. The gunner steadied, the coxswain confirmed, the deck crew braced. Harper waited for the rise of the swell to line up a splash that would be loud and clear but not reckless. Mark. The deck gun barked once, a short, hard report that slapped the sea and threw a sheet of water up in front of the fast boat's nose. The boat jolted, not from impact but from surprise. Its operator hauled the throttle back and shot wide. The second boat lost nerve and bled speed. The third hung back like it wasn't sure it liked the plan anymore. Harper didn't chase. Maintain course, she said. No pursuit. Broadcast again. Silence took a few seconds to settle. The first boat circled like it was thinking, then pointed away from the line. The second followed. The third lagged, then broke off. Radar returned stretched and thinned. Engines faded into background water. Tyler let out a breath he'd apparently been holding for a week. That's it, he said, too loud, then flinched like he wanted to swallow the words back. That's it, Harper said. Today. They held station for another hour because the ocean likes to test patience. Nothing came back. The sky opened into a clean blue. The crew loosened by degrees, the way people do when they're still standing, still dry, and not cleaning blood out of non-skid. Harper spent the time logging decisions in her head, what worked, what was luck, what was rhythm. She didn't write victory speeches. She built checklists. On the ride in, Barrett came up on the radio, voice even. Report. Harper gave him the timeline without adjectives. 3 contacts. Pattern probing, not assault. 1 warning shot, water only. Contacts withdrew. No pursuit. Copy, he said. Pier 2 on recovery. Back at Coronado, the pier noise felt louder than usual. Word moves faster than boats. The crew tied up. Lines went over. Tyler finally looked straight at Harper. You knew they'd back off, he said, somewhere between accusation and awe. No, Harper said, truthful. I knew what would happen if we escalated first. Mia swung the last line on the cleat and wiped her hands. Clean, she said. It wasn't a compliment, it was a classification. Harper nodded once. The paperwork would be fast because the action had been slow by design. She preferred it that way. Calloway waited in the shadow line at the end of the pier, not dramatic, just present. He listened to the same no-adjective report and let it hang for a beat. You didn't let their speed write your plan, he said. Good. He didn't add more. He didn't need to. We're not done. They weren't. By late afternoon, Intel pushed a new note across the board. The same three hull shapes had been seen farther south 2 nights ago, then again in a tighter pattern last night, always just outside the line until they weren't, always threading through weather if there was any, always leaving right before a patrol could make a solid ID. The picture wasn't clearer. It was sharper. Tests get bolder when they don't get slapped. Barrett drew it out on a whiteboard in 3 simple arrows. Tonight could be nothing, he said. Or it's the night they try something real. Harper didn't have a speech for the crew. She had tasks. Fuel, checks, radios, spare batteries for every handheld, redundant flashlights because things break at the worst times. She ate without tasting much. She slept 40 minutes with boots near the rack because alarms come when they want. When she opened her eyes, sunset was a smear and the wind had turned. The pier lights threw long bars on the planks. The patrol boat waited like a held breath. Tyler came down the ramp slower than he had that morning. He didn't say much. Mia set her kit with the same exact order, bolts lined up, caps secured, nothing left to chance. Harper stepped aboard and felt the deck under her boots, solid and familiar. She didn't think about perfect shots or clean screens. She thought about the next 3 hours and the 3 after that. The sea ahead looked darker than the water they'd left, not because it was, but because at night your eyes tell the truth about how little you control. They cast off on time. The engine settled into the kind of rhythm that erases small talk. Outside the breakwater, the horizon was just a thin idea. Radar painted a quiet picture at first, fishing boats where they should be, a cargo ship far off, lanes clean. Then a new return winked in, small and quick, then another, then a third, spaced like teeth. The coxswain glanced over. Harper didn't have to ask. She saw it too. We hold our lane, she said. No one gets to write this for us. The words hung in the wheelhouse while the radar painted 3 quick teeth on the edge of the scope. Night came on thick, no moon, a smear of cloud flattening any hint of starlight. The patrol boat's wake cut a chalk line that vanished as soon as it formed. Harper braced one hand on the chart table and felt the hum of the engines run through the bones of the boat. She didn't raise her voice. She didn't need to. Nav light steady. Comms on guard. Broadcast restricted waters. The watchstander keyed the mic, tone flat, message simple. No answer. The fast boats didn't close all at once. They crept in, angle by angle, like a camera zoom you barely notice until the frame is all threat. Mia was already at the forward mount, headset on, hands loose and close to controls. Tyler stood aft, eyes wide, trying to be everywhere at once. The coxswain kept the wheel like it was a dial on a safe, small moves, no drama. Weather shoved a light swell across the bow. It made the horizon wobble and the radar picture smear at the edges. The 3 contacts split, one high on port, one low on starboard, one dead ahead but sliding right, the triangle tightening into a classic pin. Harper watched the head boats wake for the kind of wobble that meant nerves. She didn't see it. They're rehearsed, she said to no one. Not brave. Rehearsed. Barrett's voice punched in over the radio, clipped but steady. Lane, command copies your picture. Intel flags pattern as reconnaissance with potential handoff. You are clear for measured deterrence. Do not escalate beyond necessity. Copy, Harper said. She set her shoulders, felt the weight of each option like rounds in a mag, use one too soon and the rest get heavier. Helm, 10 degrees starboard, slow to 15. Make them decide. The coxswain nodded and bled speed. The patrol boat's posture changed, angle shifting to force the head contact to show intent. It did. The lead fast boat eased closer, then stepped on it, wake fizzing bright under the deck lights. Warning broadcast, the watchstander repeated, the words a metronome in the dark. The boat didn't care. The other two slid deeper, one up the port quarter, the second tightening the starboard slice until the patrol was the hole in a three-ring puzzle. Tyler's breath got loud in the quiet, then he forced it down. Mia's voice came through Harper's headset, low. Forward mount green. Safe on. Solid track on 1 and 3. 2's got clutter. Hold safe, Harper said. Stand by waterline splash on starboard contact, offset 3 boat lengths. She waited for the right lift of the swell, the cleanest window. Mark. The forward gun cracked, a sharp report that slapped the ocean. The splash went up like a stage cue. The starboard contact flinched wide, throttle up, then half down like the operator was arguing with himself. The port contact didn't flinch. It pressed harder, bow nosing into the patrol's soft quarter. That was the shot, the moment when patience becomes invitation. Harper refused the invite. Helm, maintain, she said. Don't chase the flinch. Keep the triangle in view. The radio hissed as a weather cell chewed at the signal. For 5 full seconds, the net was all static and engine. Then a fragment cut through, bear it again. Lane, wind shift 5 knots west, expect cross chop. Additional patrol en route, 10 out. 10 minutes might as well have been 10 miles. Copy, Harper said. We'll hold. She checked the port contact again. No NAV lights. No flag. The deck outline was wrong for fishermen. No rods. No nets. Just equipment tucked low under a tarp. Her jaw set. Mia, prep an engine disabling shot. Only on my call. We're not writing new policy tonight. Understood, Mia said. You could hear the practiced calm, the muscle memory of a tech who'd seen adrenaline ruin good hands and refused to let it happen here. The lead boat finally made its move, hard right, then a snap back left toward the patrol's bow, the kind of feint meant to yank the wheel and open the other side. Harper didn't buy it. Hold the line, she said. Don't give them our stern. She saw the picture reshuffle in her head, the geometry of motion and intent, and slid the patrol 5 degrees port, enough to present beam without offering up a flank. Final warning, the watchstander said, voice steady. Restricted waters. Identify or depart. The only reply was growl and spray. The lead boat was inside 100 now, a bad number in any language. Tyler's hands clenched on the rail, then relaxed when he saw Harper's didn't move. The coxswain's knuckles were pale and calm. Lane, Barrett came through again, cleaner this time. Authority extended for disabling fire against outboard if imminent hazard. Document everything. Minimal shots. Minimal risk. Copy, Harper said. Decision time. She looked at the angle, the swell, the way the lead boat was setting itself to cut across the bow and force a swerve. Her window would be 3 seconds long and 2 feet wide. Mia, she said, even. Engine housing on the lead, offset low. 1 round only. On my mark. Target locked, Mia said. Harper waited. A wave lifted. The bow rose. The fast boat's outboard kicked into a hard gulp of air as the prop kissed the surface. The moment opened like a door. Mark. The forward gun barked. The recoil came back into the deck. A heartbeat later, the outboard coughed fire and snapped to dead. The fast boat slewed, lost thrust, and dug its bow into the chop, spinning on its own wake. The operator threw up a hand, shock, not surrender, but the move broadcast the only message that mattered: they were done moving fast. The port contact broke immediately, throttle to the stops, trying to shoot the gap the lead had failed to make. No pursuit, Harper said, almost before anyone could breathe. Track only. Keep our geometry. The starboard contact wavered, then peeled wide, the kind of retreat that says the plan was never to fight, just to see. Broadcast, again, she said. Same message. Add, medical assistance available. The watchstander read it out. The disabled boat bobbed ugly at 30 yards, stern low, outboard smoking. 2 silhouettes moved, one waving, one cursing. The patrol slid just enough to keep safe water around both hulls. Command copies engine stop, Barrett said, the words flatter than the relief in them. Second unit 5 minutes out. Coast Guard notified. Harper felt the deck's hum shift as the coxswain trimmed throttle and the patrol settled into a defensive hold. The air smelled like salt and burned fuel. Tyler finally exhaled in a rush and wiped a hand across his face like he could erase adrenaline. He looked at Harper like she'd pulled a rabbit out of steel. She shook her head once. It was timing, she said. And discipline. Mia stayed on the mount, safe still on, eyes never leaving the water. Lane, she said after a beat, 2 on the disabled boat, both upright. No visible weapons. They're shouting in Spanish and something else I can't catch. Copy, Harper said. No boarding until second unit arrives. Keep them in the light. She had the watchstander swing the searchlight off the eyes and onto the deck, enough to keep hands visible without blinding anyone into panic. The starboard contact was a memory now, the port one a diminishing smear that knew better than to look back. The lead crew, their engine dead and their plan cut, had to live with the quiet. Patrol 2 on scene in 3, the radio called. Advise status. Engine disabled on 1 contact, Harper replied. No injuries observed. 2 other contacts departing at speed. We have the scene, holding fire, offering medical, no boarding until you're here. Copy all, the second unit said. Wind pushed a thin chop against the hull. The kind that makes waiting feel like a task. Harper let the seconds stack. She didn't fill them with talk. She counted the details that mattered, how many hands, where the flash of metal might be, how the disabled boat's stern rode lower than it should, what that tarp might hide if someone got creative. She carried the whole picture, and she kept it simple. Blue light stitched the water as the second patrol cut in from the south, engine noise growing until it filled the gaps in her hearing. They slid into position without burning the scene down, bow light low, searchlight high. We've got the board, their coxswain called. You keep outer ring. Roger, Harper said. She let them take the closer dance and widened her circle just enough to keep the exit small. Coast Guard popped up on the net, all formal words and legal lines. The next 10 minutes would be paperwork in voice form. Harper didn't mind paperwork when it came after control. Barrett came back once more, voice quieter, like he'd stepped away from the room. Lane, command logs deterrence success, 1 disabling round, no collateral, no pursuit. Hold until turnover complete. Good work. Harper didn't say thank you. She said, Wilco, and watched the disabled boat for any last twitch that would turn clean into messy. None came. The Coast Guard cutter's bow light grew into a shape, the handoff was real now, not just radio words. The second patrol went hands-on. The tarp came up. Equipment under it that had no business being on a night run inside restricted water. Not weapons exactly. Not harmless either. Cameras. Range tools. Things that measure and memorize. The cutter took custody. The scene slid into the next stage, statements, chain of evidence, reports. The triangle that had tried to pin them had collapsed into geometry Harper could live with, 1 circle of control, 1 clear outcome. She let her shoulders drop half an inch and felt the boat let out the breath no one will ever hear on a recording. Set course back to base, she said at last. Steady and quiet. The coxswain answered with his hands. Engines came up, then down, finding the pace that gets you home without waking anyone you don't have to. Tyler leaned against the rail and stared at the wake like it might tell him what just happened to his idea of the job. Mia climbed down from the mount and rolled her shoulders, a single shake like a fighter letting lactic acid go. The pier lights showed up by degrees, first as a hint, then a row, then a path. Harper stood at the bow again, not for effect, just because it's where you feel the return first. She didn't think about praise. She thought about how the next watch would read her log, about how clean decisions make clean mornings. Behind her, the radio went quiet enough to hear the water talk. Back at Coronado, they took the lines like they'd been practicing all week, because they had. The deck thumped solid under boots. The boat exhaled into the fenders. Harper stepped off last and met Barrett halfway down the pier. He didn't smile. He didn't need to. That, he said, is what we mean by control under pressure. She nodded, eyes still adjusting from the dark. We kept the lane, she said. And the standard. Calloway was waiting in the same shadow line he'd used all day. He listened to the lean version of events and gave one tight nod that said more than a speech. Debrief at 07, he said. Sleep what you can. The picture's going to get louder when the intel boys open that tarp. He glanced toward the black water like it might talk back. You changed the room tonight, Lane. Harper didn't argue. She didn't own it either. She just logged the line in her head, the way she logged hits and misses. The crew drifted off into the prep lights and the smell of hot metal cooling. The base settled. She walked the pier with the quiet of someone whose pulse didn't know how to brag. In her inbox, by the time she hit the barracks door, a new subject line appeared from Command Intel, preliminary findings, debrief agenda, recommended follow-on posture. The night wasn't ending so much as folding into the next piece. She keyed the door and felt the weight of the day slide off her shoulders one notch at a time, knowing that in a few hours, the story they'd started on the water would carry into a room full of questions. At 0700, it did. The debrief space at Coronado was bright, screens up, coffee burned down to its second life. Calloway stood off to the side with Barrett, Intel took the front. Coast Guard dialed in on a side screen. No speeches. Slides, timestamps, photos. The tarp from the disabled boat was the headline, camera rigs, rangefinders, GPS loggers, a compact SDR receiver, batteries taped in parallel. Not weapons. Tools that map patterns, patrol speed, lane discipline, response time. Somebody had been building a book on the coast. 3 hulls, same configuration seen this week down south, Intel said. No registrations. Outboard scrubbed. Equipment wired to record and transmit. Whoever ran them knew how to stay inside the line until they didn't. A still frame froze the spray at the moment Mia's round killed the engine. Another frame showed 2 operators with faces turned away. No ID yet, the analyst said. Data off the cards is clean enough. It'll give us a map of their map. The room listed facts, track plots, weather overlays, comm fragments. Then it got to decisions. Deterrence executed with 1 disabling shot, Intel said. No injuries. No pursuit. Minimal footprint. Message delivered without escalation. Barrett didn't look over, but Harper could feel his silent nod. Calloway's hands were locked behind his back. He let the analyst talk until the slide marked assessment. Recommendation, Intel said. Temporary posture change, stagger patrol timing, add 1 drift leg outside the usual pattern, very broadcast phrasing, maintain engine disabling authority under watch supervisor. Push a second unit forward earlier if weather degrades. Approved, Calloway said. 1 word. Everyone in the room wrote it down. He faced Harper. Draft the update to the watch standard checklist and the gun mount procedures. You'll brief the next 3 crews. Yes, sir. Coast Guard chimed in from the screen. Cutter custody complete. 2 personnel in processing. Equipment logged. We'll share findings as cleared. The cutter's XO added a simple line that mattered. your shot solved a problem we didn't need to turn into a bigger one." The meeting broke without clapping. People moved to corners and started their part. Barrett caught Harper by the door. "Your lane," he said, meaning the memo and the brief. "Keep it tight. If it reads like common sense, you did it right." She spent the next 2 hours doing the boring work that keeps crews alive, writing instructions that assume no one in a storm will have time to think. Checklists, not essays. Boxes, not paragraphs. Mia slid into a chair across from her with a tablet and a wrench still in her pocket. "Mount note," she said. "Add this, operator will verbalize safe on after any splash to keep the deck honest." "Good," Harper said, typing it in. "Also add, no warning splash if swell or traffic risks ricochet." "Copy. And make the phrasing dumb enough that even Tyler can brief it at 0300, Mia said. "Not unkind. Just real." Harper delivered the briefing to 3 crews with simple slides and cleaner lines. No hero talk. She walked them through the geometry from last night, what they could expect, what to ignore. Tyler sat in the second row of the first brief, pen on his knee. He didn't fidget. When she asked for questions, he asked a good one: "When do you decide not to disable?" She answered straight. "When our picture is incomplete, when a splash creates more hazard than it solves, when the contact is leaving, when you can hold and let time do what guns can't." He wrote that down like it was an equation. By late afternoon, the base took on that middle-day quiet when people are either working or asleep. The pier noise was lighter. Patrols shifted. Broadcasts changed tempo. Harper went back to the range for a short cycle, not to show off, but to reset. 10 rounds, nothing heavy. She logged hits and walked off without a story. The day after hard nights, you go back to small fundamentals. That's the job. Late that night, the water gave them a test that wasn't a test. A single fast boat appeared on radar, then answered a hail with a proper call sign. It identified, slowed, turned out. The watch logged it as compliant. No triangle. No teeth on the scope. The next watch logged the same. Over the next 48 hours, the pattern held. Either the message landed or the players shifted. Ships along the lane reported nothing worse than noise. Noise is easy. You clean it out of reports in the morning. Tyler found Harper on the pier between checks and cleared his throat like he was asking for leave. "I didn't get it," he said, eyes on the water. "The timing. The window. I kept thinking we should have chased." She let him finish. "You will again," she said. "That's why you don't lead with the part of your brain that wants to go fast. You lead with the picture." He nodded without pretending that fixed everything. "It won't. Only time with a headset on will." Calloway's follow-up wasn't a handshake. He sent a 2-line note that would live longer than any applause. "Lane, effective immediately, attaches training lead for deterrence doctrine updates. Command expects a draft SOP by Friday. You'll brief at the O5 Council." That meant more rooms, fewer naps, and a chance to bake last night's discipline into policy. Reward and work are the same word around here. The public affairs piece reached the base in the way these things do, a bland statement about coordinated patrols and interagency cooperation. No names. No photos. The crew didn't need them. The back-channel recognition was the kind that actually matters. Maintenance fast-tracked a parts request, supply found space on a pallet, the wardroom left coffee hot at weird hours. People vote with actions. Intel pushed an interim report to command. The gear on the seized boat had been logging for weeks, not days. Someone had been patient. Someone had patterns they cared about. The report listed 4 likely reasons: smuggling, foreign recon, domestic criminal recon, and a catch-all that always shows up when people don't want to guess in writing. Calloway circled foreign recon and smuggling and wrote, "Treat both like they're true until one isn't." That line moved to the top of the next brief. Harper spent a chunk of the next day in the simulation center, not running the board, but watching junior officers run it. She stood with Barrett and kept her hands in her pockets. When a candidate chased a feint, she didn't flinch. She let the sim punish the mistake and then asked a single question after, "What did the water want you to do?" The better ones realized the sim wasn't trying to trick them. It was teaching them to ignore noise. The worse ones told long stories. The room doesn't love long stories. By the third night, the coast felt like a new room. The air wasn't calmer, the posture was. Calm sounded like people who knew what to say before they needed to say it. The next warning splash done by another crew went clean, waterline only, and the contact parted without drama. That's not victory. That's maintenance. It's what you want. The crew's pulse settled into a normal high. Mia laughed once at something dumb Tyler said about coffee being a food group, that was as close to a parade as they were going to get. Harper read the next week's watch bill and saw her name carved into briefs and checks. Barrett slid a thin folder across her desk with a line on the cover, Temporary Doctrine, Rev 1. He tapped it. "We'll lock the language after the council. Until then, keep writing what you'd want read at 2 in the morning." She took a slow walk past the range at dusk. Targets hung in the same old row. The ocean pushed a steady breath across the base. Calloway crossed the asphalt toward the pier, shoulders squared like always. He didn't wave. He didn't have to. You can tell when a standard has shifted because the bass sounds different. Fewer raised voices. Fewer heavy steps. The work stayed hard, the room got clearer. In her inbox, another subject line blinked from Intel, debrief agenda finalized. Include lessons learned. She opened a blank slide and typed the first bullet without polishing it, discipline isn't slow. It's precise. The second, don't trade a clean hold for a fast win. The third, timing is a tool. She closed the laptop and looked at the water for a long beat. The horizon was just a dark line, same as always. The job doesn't change because one night goes right, it changes because you keep making nights go right. That's the part you can actually control. She turned back toward the barracks, boots quiet on concrete, already sorting the order of the morning, council brief, range check, watchstander walkthrough, pier. The questions would be sharper now, the kind that looked past last night into next month. She was ready for those, too, because the answer wasn't a story. It was a standard. And in the morning, she would put it on the table and defend it with the same thing that had carried her on the line and on the water, clarity under pressure, before taking a final look back at the sea and deciding what needed to be said to close the loop. Morning light came in sideways over Coronado, flattening shadows and putting a clean edge on everything that had felt blurred at night. Harper walked into the 05 council room with a thin binder and no extra words. Barrett was already there, sleeves rolled, a pen resting on the pad like a loaded question. Calloway stood near the window, back straight, eyes on the channel. The others settled with the weary calm of people who know the difference between a story and a standard. Harper put the slide deck up and didn't warm the room with small talk. She started where it mattered, the geometry, the timing, the decision points. She pointed to the moment the lead fast boat cut hard across the bow and explained why chasing would have handed the other two a seam. She showed how the warning splash works and when it doesn't. She kept it plain. Discipline isn't slow, she said. It's precise. Timing is a tool. We use it, or someone else uses it on us. A commander from operations pushed on the weak joints like he should. What if your warning splash ricochets with weekend traffic stacked inshore? She had the answer on the next line. No splash with crowded lanes, tight chop, or blind angles. Broadcast and shape. If deterrence fails and hazard becomes imminent, one disabling round on the engine housing only. Document everything. Another officer asked why they didn't board immediately after the stop. She walked through risk layering, second unit arrival, and chain of evidence without drama. Bare facts carry farther than adjectives. Calloway let the questions run, then cut them off with a glance that had ended more arguments than memos ever would. Adopt the draft SOP, he said. Revise with lessons learned as they grow. Lane briefs the waterfront at 1400. I want the next watch sounding like they've done this for 10 years. Pens moved, decisions hardened into policy. He turned slightly toward her. You changed the room again. Don't get comfortable. She didn't. After the council, Harper crossed to the simulation center and ran the updated scenario for 2 junior teams. She watched errors happen in a safe place and let silence do most of the teaching. What did the water want you to do? She asked after a rushed chase left a virtual convoy exposed. The junior OOD stared at the frozen screen and found his own answer. That's the point, you don't make people carry your voice, you make them hear their own better. At 1400 she briefed the waterfront. Chiefs stood with arms folded, young officers leaned forward with that hungry confusion that looks like arrogance until it grows up. She kept it short. Hold the lane. Don't let speed write your plan. Warning splash only when it's more signal than risk. Disabling fire only when hazard is real and near. Log it like a lawyer will read it. And remember, no one's impressed by a fast mess. Heads nodded because the ocean had taught the same lesson to better people than anyone in this crowd. Word from Intel came in as a quiet ping later. Early reads on the seized gear suggested a mix of smuggling logistics and foreign eyes learning to think like locals. Nothing cinematic. Just patient. That's worse, in a way. It means they'll be back when they believe the pattern shifted again. Harper filed the note and underlined Calloway's instruction in her head, treat both like they're true until one isn't. That's how you stay honest. Tyler found her on the pier at dusk, less careless now, more careful in the right ways. I thought being good meant being fast, he said, squinting at the water. Then I watched you be slow and beat speed. She shook her head. I wasn't slow. I worked on the right clock. He frowned, then grinned when it clicked. Right clock. Got it. He didn't say thanks, he didn't need to. He went to stand a quiet watch, which is a better thank you than words. Mia closed out her maintenance logs and flicked a stain off the forward mount housing with the kind of pride that pretends it's just habit. Add one more line to the checklist, she said, half smiling. After any shot, warning or disabling, the operator says out loud, safe on, stable deck, eyes up. Harper nodded and wrote it in ink. Good habits deserve real estate on paper. Night fell without ceremony. The next patrol slid out with the new checklist laminated and clipped. Their broadcast phrasing matched the memo. Their timing matched the geometry. Out past the markers, a single fast boat winked on radar, paused, then bled away without testing the edges. Maybe the message had landed. Maybe they were waiting. Either way, the lane stayed clean because the people in it were. Calloway called Harper into his office as the base lights came up. He didn't sit. You did well, he said, a sentence that had to cross a lot of ice to leave his mouth. Understand what that means and what it doesn't. You'll get more responsibility. You'll get less sleep. You'll also get seen. Being seen is not the same as being ready. Stay ready. He watched her absorb it, hunting for any sign she wanted to shine more than the work. He found none. Good, he said. Now go do the boring parts. She did. She double-checked the watch bill, walked the pier, touched the forward mount like a mechanic, not a celebrity. She stood near the bow and let the night wash off the metal, the smell of salt and fuel turning into background. The sea looked the same as it had the week before, like it would the week after, which is the whole point. The job isn't to make it feel exciting. The job is to make it stay ordinary. Later, in the quiet room outside the wardroom, Harper typed up the last piece of the SOP with the lines that felt truest when read at 0200, hold posture, think in angles, buy time with position not volume, say less, see more. She signed it with a name that didn't need rank to matter and sent it up. The return ping came back with one word from Calloway: filed. Barrett found her at the coffee urn and handed her a mug that could have stripped paint. "You know what I keep thinking," he said. "Nobody'll ever feel dramatic reading that checklist. But they'll go home because of it." She took a sip and winced. "That's the point." By the end of the week, the base sounded different in a way you sense before you can explain. Comms were tighter. Range commands were cleaner. The pier moved with small, confident steps. A junior crew executed a textbook warning splash at dawn and let a contact part without turning it into a war story. Maintenance got ahead of a failure because someone read a line that hadn't existed last month. The standard had shifted by an inch. An inch is a mile if you hold it for a year. On Friday afternoon, Harper stood at the edge of Silver Range while a new line of shooters settled in. The .50 sat heavy on its rest, indifferent as always. The wind rode a small angle on the flag. A young lieutenant built a shot the way it should be built, steady, not pretty. The plate fell with that same flat clang Harper had heard 100 times. She didn't feel nostalgia. She felt alignment. The work on the range teaches the work on the water. The work on the water teaches the work in your head. It all points the same direction if you let it. She walked back toward the pier alone, not because she liked being alone, but because you return to the water the way you return to a habit that keeps you honest. The lane stretched out straight and simple. The city hummed behind her. Somewhere in the distance, a cutter rolled its wake at just the right speed. She thought about what Calloway had said, "Don't get comfortable," and about Tyler's right clock and Mia's safe on ritual. Small lines, big outcomes. If there's a lesson you can write without wasting ink, she thought, it's this: control is not about crushing the chaos, it's about refusing to let chaos pick the clock. You don't need louder hands. You need clearer eyes. You don't need heroics you can't repeat. You need habits you can't forget. And when you've done it right, the story you tell at the end is boring in the best way. Nothing blew up that didn't need to, nobody bled who didn't have to, and the sea stayed a place where people go to work and come home. Harper stopped at the bow and looked out one last time, the water carrying light like it always has. She didn't picture a medal or a headline. She pictured the next watch reading the checklist and feeling less alone at 2 in the morning. That was enough. She turned, boots steady on concrete, ready to do the next ordinary thing that keeps extraordinary trouble from getting a vote, leaving behind only the sound of the base breathing easy and the quiet certainty that clarity under pressure isn't a moment, it's a standard you keep.